Where are we right now?
We're in Ottawa.
We're in Ottawa, right. But where exactly are we?
We're at Westboro Beach.
Right.
Kitchissippi, is it?
Yes, Kitchissippi.
Kitchissippi?
Yes. It's there's a lot to ask, and I guess we'll start informally, because this is very informal, as you know, conversations with Garmamie. What brought you here? Why are you here? Why are you on this planet?
Why am I here with you?
No, I mean, why are you here on this planet? What's your life purpose?
My life purpose is to learn, to love, and to spread as much kindness and compassion as possibly that I can, because I'm only human. And sometimes when I get stuck in my mind, it's hard to see the other person. But in reality, we're all interconnected and we're all one, basically.
Well, why do people get stuck in their minds?
Because people get addicted to thinking. People get very, very addicted to thinking, and it's absolutely normal in the kind of society we live these days.
You mean like overthinking, or
overthinking? Because you need to think to survive, but when you overthink, you basically kill the joy out of life.
Give us an example of that. What's the difference between thinking and overthinking? Give us a concrete example.
So there you are. You're thinking what you're going to cook for your spouse and your kids for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start overthinking, what if my roast reminds my ex, like my husband about his ex? What if the same, like, you start thinking crazy stuff like, why didn't he, why was he 10 minutes late? Was he with somebody else? What was he doing? Honey, I was just at the gym. Were you at the gym? And then you get lost.
In thought.
Like
right.
Negative, and it's mostly negative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice if people got lost in positive thinking.
Does that happen? Do people get lost in positive thinking? Is that even possible?
It is possible. You can direct you are the master of your mind. The mind is not the master of you. Right?
But how do you cultivate that positive thinking? Because we live in a society, I'm generalizing here, where we're stressed, people are running around, they got this, that, dude, blah, 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 you know what I mean? All this. And the negative thinking, to me, seems more, I don't know, pervasive to a certain extent.
People can break from the pattern of negative thinking by bringing themselves into the present moment. And it's actually quite simple to bring yourself into the present moment. You start off by focusing on your breath and how the breath flows in, flows out, and you see the thoughts go through your mind, but you don't attach yourself to them. You just let them flow, kind of like the clouds in the sky.
Like the leaves that are just
like
dropping.
The leaves. We can learn a lot actually from the leaves. Leaves and nature are the best teacher for humanity, because they don't hold on to anything. They just surrender to what is, and which is change. Change is the only constant, and change is the only truth.
What brought you to this? Obviously, you're doing Kundalini Yoga training. Yeah. Tell us what brought you to that, to this point in your life of self, I guess, transformation and self-reflection. And
okay, about 4 years ago, I was living in Bangladesh, and I was living in an Islamic society, and I wanted to know what Islam was about, because what I was being shown on media was giving me a very negative outlook. And I started to kind of become aware as I was watching the media that if every single media outlet is airing the same thing and trying to shove the same idea down everybody's throat, that I need to look at it in a different way. Okay. So I started off with studying theology. I studied every single religion that there was. I
Seriously?
Yes. I got completely lost, and I started off with Judaism, Christianity. We went to a Catholic high school, so I knew a lot more about Christianity than anything.
Sure.
Then I got to Islam, and once I got to Islam, I realized that what I was being fed down my throat in the media was completely different than what Islam represented. And my favorite branch of Islam is Sufism.
All right, right.
And
The mystical.
The mystical, because
side of-
we are all mystical beings. Like
Sure.
we are all capable of such grand things. We're grand souls in this world, and each and every, even Buddhism, Zenism, Taoism, Hinduism, Sikhism, all these religions speak of the same truth, and they're all interconnected. And this is what brought me to like start questioning. It was the media that brought me to start questioning what the hell is going on in the world, because it just seemed, everything seemed wrong.
Right.
Everything seemed like it was going helter-skelter, like crazy.
Sure.
And I started questioning, like, what's happening? Why is this happening? Who are these people? Why is this? And then the more I learned, I realized, so actually a real Muslim or a real Christian or a real, even what's happening in Palestine, and like a real person who follows Judaism,
Yep.
they would not support what's happening in Palestine, because that actually goes against their religion. So I realized that is Zionism. And I realized the difference between Zionism and Judaism, the difference between Islam and extreme Islam.
Sure.
Catholic, Christianity, and like different branches of like, it boggled my mind.
Right.
And I started to wake up, and I lost a lot of relationships around me because I was so verbal about what I was learning. Like, I'm learning this. Everybody's like, weirdo. Like, stop telling me this. I don't care.
Right. You mean you were actively sharing?
I was actively sharing with my family, my friends, my spouse, and I lost people because I did not know how to separate my ego from it at the time. I thought what I was learning, I had to share so much that people felt like I was pushing it on.
Okay.
So, but
what would you say, you were sharing your quote unquote belief, or just what you were learning, or the journey?
I thought I was sharing my learning, but people saw it as I'm sharing my beliefs, because actually that's not what I believe in. What I believe in is completely different. I have my own branch of beliefs. Like, I believe I'm an omnist.
Okay. Never heard of that term. What does that mean?
I believe that every single religion of the world is the truth.
Okay.
Every single path will lead you to the truth. It doesn't matter if you're following Judaism, Christianity, Taoism. If you are just persistent within your path, you will come to enlightenment. Yeah. Like that's an omnist. Yeah.
I just learned something new there. I don't think many people know that term. So when so you dove right into this spiritual journey, yeah?
Yeah.
And now you're doing yoga training, Kundalini.
Yeah. So
One second. Keep keep the mic close like that. Yeah.
Sorry.
Perfect. So you can take it right there about.
Okay, so I came to Kundalini Yoga found me. I didn't find Kundalini Yoga. I was at a point in my journey where my life basically, because my life collapsed around me. Everything that I thought I was going to be and that I was going to become collapsed. And that is actually a gift. Back then I saw it as like, what? How could this happen?
I think most people would, right?
Yeah. But now that I'm at this point, I realize that it was the greatest gift that, the universe, God gave me to wake me up. And I was in Malaysia and I was researching how to release, because I could forget about the pain like I was going through in my life. Like, say you're going through like a breakup or like this or that, and then like you're going through such internal pain. And you're learning how to deal with it. Now, one way that I can not focus on the suffering and this pain is to keep in the present moment. But my pain was still stored in my body. Like, I was storing pain in my lower part of my body, in my upper back. And
because of negative thoughts.
Because of negative thoughts. And as much as I would stop the negative thoughts, I could stop them by bringing myself into the moment. But the stored pain, how do I release that? I wanted to know how to release the stored pain. And so I was researching that. I basically Googled how to release stored pain. Thanks, Google. But and one of the things that I came across by accident was an article by a yogi who talked about his Kundalini Awakening, which basically Kundalini Awakening is awakening your life energy. And the life energy travels up through your chakras, which is also called the lymphic glands, like of the body. In Western
Lymphic nodes or
something. I have to brush up on this, but basically the chakras is because I'm more. So once the life energy, the prana, the kundalini, the shakti raises, it clears up those chakras, and you release the pains that are stored in your body. And I read this and I was like, I want this.
Right.
So I researched the nearest Kundalini yoga class, and that's how it happened. I walked in, and after the first class, I was basically in a corner crying.
Really?
And the teacher was like, it's okay, it's your first time, like this happens. Like, you know, I released so much during just the first initial class that I knew that this is where, and I know that every single place that I've come to in life, I'm guided. Nothing is a coincidence, I feel. Like, so I think that life brought me there for a reason.
When you were crying in the corner, were you crying because of the fact
release.
that the release of pain?
And the suffering? I felt lighter, and I was grateful. And it wasn't tears of sorrow; it was tears of
joy,
like,
right? Or gratitude.
Gratitude, like because eternal love and gratitude. I saw this in I saw this documentary, and this man was talking about sign language, and he was saying this sign actually doesn't mean rock on. In sign language, it means eternal love and gratitude.
Eternal love.
Love
okay.
and gratitude. So that's what I felt. I felt such eternal love and gratitude, and like the universe was looking out for me, basically.
Now, for you, since you're embarking on this training, obviously you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your loved ones, I imagine. You're doing it for people.
I'm doing it mostly for myself first, because once I love myself and heal myself, only then can I extend anything to the people around me. So I need to take care of myself in order to take care of everyone else around me. And as much as I know my purpose is to extend caring and kindness and compassion, but first I got to do it to myself, because if it works on me, then I know I can work for you, brother.
Right.
You know?
So what's it like doing this yoga training? Lead us through, I guess, the curriculum, as far as, you know, you mentioned it's like it's 9 months or a year long or something like that?
I'm actually, the course that I'm taking a program at Prana Shanti Yoga Center. It's actually located in Westboro, off Parkdale, and
you're plugging. No, nothing wrong with that. No, whatever.
But it's an 8-month-long program, and what Kundalini Yoga is, the yoga of awareness. It's to tune in, raise your life energy, and the teacher, the professor, Miss Kaur, she's going to guide us through basically history. She's going to start us off with the history of it, and that's very important. I feel that to know anything, you have to start off with the history, with the background. So that's really important to me. When she was explaining the curriculum, I was mostly, what grasping was, she's going to explain how this came to be. Because Kundalini Yoga, it is a new thing that's spreading out through the West. It's but knowing the background history of anything that you do is very, very, very important. So that's what grasped me with the curriculum, that she's going to cover that. And then she's going to focus on nutrition. Nutrition is so important in just cleansing our body and bringing ourselves to a peace of mind. What we put in our body is so important. And that also grasped me when she was explaining the curriculum. I really want to know what kind of food to put in my body to live.
What kind of food do you guys eat?
Okay.
Do you people?
do you people? But mostly practitioners of yoga tend to be vegetarians or vegan.
Are you a vegetarian and or a vegan?
I recently became a vegetarian. I cannot give up cheese because I love cheese.
Lactose.
I love that cheese. Like,
you do?
But
is it because you're cheesy? No. Whatever.
No, I am cheesy, dude. I love cheesy as humor.
Cheesy's good. Yeah.
You know what's really cheesy?
What?
And the humorous?
What?
The universe, God. God is actually really humorous.
How so?
People think that God is like this, like
serious.
Serious. God is humorous. Just look at life. How many times have you freaking laughed at the absurd nature of the things that are happening around you? And once you tune into like, it's so funny, it's actually not that serious.
Right.
So yeah,
But
that's
it-
off side note.
No, but that's interesting. Is that how you view life in terms of absurdity and humor
Okay.
and?
I
Oh, look! There's a bee flying near you.
I love bees.
It's yeah.
Bees are
Wow.
good, but before all of this, before the Kundalini, before the Asia, before the all that, and before moving to Canada,
Yeah.
I was born in former Yugoslavia,
Right.
and in former Yugoslavia in the 1990s, we had a big
Dobar
war.
dan.
Dobro
Dobro or is it dobar?
Dobar dan.
Dobar dan.
Good
Okay.
day.
Right.
So, before all of this, there was in my life in former Yugoslavia as a child, and then like in the 1990s, a war broke out, and I was so confused because first of all, I didn't know what was going on around me. All I knew is I didn't have to go to school.
Right.
Bonus, like.
How old were you at this time?
I was probably 7 or 8. I was my
Grade
daughter's
2?
age.
What's
I was starting grade 3 when the war broke out, so I was 7.5 probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going through war. Like I was in a concentration camp. I did a whole bunch of like surviving.
Are you serious?
Like yeah. And before all of that, I remember going through these really tough things and like watching people die in front of me and this and that, but always having a feeling within my center that everything's going to be all right. And when the most traumatizing things would happen, afterwards, when my family and I would check in, humor brought us back to,
wow.
like it brought us back to humanity.
Right.
Because during war, humanity is lost.
Mm-hmm.
People are out of their fucking mind. Like,
Sure.
that's when people are stuck in ego, and war is bullshit. Like,
Sure.
and I remember checking in, like after getting out of the camp and us trying to get out of Bosnia, and checking in with my grandma, my mom, my siblings. I had 2 siblings at the time that were with us, and humor brought us back to humanity. And that's how I know that God is humorous. The universe is humorous. Like, hold on to your humor, because the moment you start taking yourself seriously is when you get caught up in the
ego
and the mind.
Sure.
Right? So keep it light, keep it bubbly.
That's fascinating. You know, the theme of humor as a mechanism to keep
cope.
us to cope. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I really like that analogy, you know, of God as humorous, because I'll be honest, I've never heard of that. Like we tend to, I guess, see God as I don't know, serious,
wrathful, mostly wrathful. God will punish you.
Right.
But actually, when I was learning like theology, one of the names in Islam was Al-Wadud, the all-loving God.
Okay.
Why aren't people focusing on that? God is all loving.
Right.
God is all merciful, all compassionate, all
right.
You know?
Or like the happy Buddha. I don't know much about
and
Buddhism.
Even in Buddhism, the happy Buddha, there's like all the religions tie in. You just got to come from a place of like right here, and you'll find the truth. Basically.
Now you mentioned you're touching your solar plexus. You mentioned that space. What chakra is that what energy?
I'm not like, I know that this is my intuitive chakra, because this is where I come with my intuition. And mind you, I'm just learning about the chakra system. But I know
it's an exam,
right? But
Kidding.
this is my heart. This is where my compassion comes from, and I'm not sure, like, yet if that's the real chakra meaning of this chakra. But like, I feel intuitively that this is my heart chakra, my compassion chakra. This is where my comes from. My
Right.
like,
Right.
I don't know.
What so how long have you been in this program now? It's been 3 months, you said?
No, the program's actually starting next week.
Oh, I thought, okay, cool.
No, the program is starting next week.
All right.
But all this stuff that I'm sharing is my own. Every single day, I open up a book and I read a chapter. And so right now, I'm reading 6 books at the same time.
Okay.
And they're all, because I feel before I start anything, I need to do extensive research.
Right. I see a common theme with you. You're like always, you know what I mean? Doing research.
Because you will not tell me what to believe.
Right.
I will believe what I'm going to research, and I'm going to find the truth. And basically, like,
So what are you reading? 6 books?
right now I'm reading like Kundalini Awakening, Frequency, that book.
Yeah, that energy book. Was it energy? Yeah.
Basically, I'm learning right now because Kundalini is all about waking up your life energy, which is your frequency. And we're all born with a high frequency, intuitive compassion, kindness as
Right.
babies. And with this intuitive frequency is how we survive as babies. You throw out your vibes to your mom, what you need, and you feel out her vibe, how she's feeling towards you. Frequency is everything.
So do you feel people's
I
energy?
feel you, and I feel everybody.
Right. Do you feel negative energy as well?
I do feel negative energy, and when I'm around that, I feel I tear up, and I need to get away because it affects me. I remember a person in my life always used to put me down for being sensitive.
Wow.
But sensitivity is what life is all about. Be sensitive to everything around you, the air, the way that the wind is shifting, the way that your breath falls, when your hair goes over your lip. Be so sensitive. Like, to be sensitive is to be alive. Right?
Do you find though that if you're over, like, you know, I hear you on the point of sensitivity, but if you open yourself up to too much, you can be extremely vulnerable to the chaos that is every day.
It's true, and people tend to take advantage.
Of course, you got energy vampires. You got people who will suck your energy.
They suck the life out of you, and then
know.
they point the finger at you and blame you for it, for not handling it.
Yeah, that's classic emotional abuse.
Exactly.
You know, and fundamentally speaking, that's what it is. How do you find, you know, as you're researching all this stuff, are you looking back at your life and your own journey and looking at things and is your past making more sense? I know you're trying to remain in the now.
Yes, but thanks for bringing that up, because I'm actually trying to do this thing right now where I'm not allowing my past to define me. Yes, the past is a part of me and it's taught me an amazing lesson, but I don't dwell on the past. I'm not going to let it define every moment of my life. It was there to teach me a grand lesson, and now I need to use all my resources to bring myself to the now.
Right.
How do I bring my... And the constant journey is to stay in the now, stay in the now, stay in the now. And the biggest reason I want to do this, and I'm doing this, and is, yes, it's for me, but it's also for my children.
Right.
I need to teach these little souls how not to get sucked, because when I was in my past going through the struggles of just being, I didn't have any support system.
You didn't.
Where I've come now is thanks to me, myself, and I. And there were a few people along my journey who were very compassionate, who gave a part of themselves to see me through the toughest moments and grab me out of that. And eternal love and gratitude their way, right? But mostly it comes down to you, yourself, and you. Like,
self-reliance.
Rely on yourself, and we got to teach our children that. We got to teach our children that their inner happiness, their everything is based on them. It comes from themselves.
Right.
You can't make me happy.
Right. No,
I
you're
can only
right.
make myself happy.
Happiness is an inside job for sure. It has to come from the inside, and it has to. How do you think okay? So you traveled a lot. You've lived abroad, so on and so forth. What is your opinion of the concept of happiness when we look at different cultures? How is North American? What is the North American idea of happiness vis-a-vis the Bangladeshi, vis-a-vis the Malaysian? Is it universal?
That up. This is amazing, because when I lived in Bangladesh, one of the most beautiful things that I saw was the poorest of the poor are so happy.
Really?
They're in the present moment. They are living life in the now. And you have the rickshawala that drives his rickshaw for 12 hours a day to feed his family, and he lives in a cardboard box on the side of the street.
Right.
But when he comes home and he checks in with his wife and his 2 little kids on the side of the road, you see nothing but smiles, hugs, and happiness, as compared to a man in the West who works for a corporation 6 to 8 hours.
Sure.
And he's making thousands of dollars, and he comes home and him and his wife are at each other, and the kids are watching from the side, petrified of what's going to happen.
Sure.
Happiness, the less you have, I swear to God, the happier you are, because it brings you to the present moment. Mind you, you can't come to the same equilibrium, the same balance in the West, but there's so much pressure here.
Right.
The pressure is so much, and people are drowning in it, and it's not their fault. They're just trying to.
But isn't it people just doing it to themselves?
It
though?
is.
I mean, aren't we all free to to make choices?
We are.
And I guess you're talking about people working jobs maybe they're not passionate about, maybe they're not in a healthy relation. Oh, I just saw a chipmunk.
This is so cute.
You see that chipmunk? Too bad we don't have a second camera. That would have been a cool cutaway.
Up close.
But yeah, totally. But no, I hear what you're saying, and there's choice when it comes to being happy, and cross-culturally, like owning. You're saying less ownership, more happiness.
More just in the moment. More because nothing will bring you more happiness than just being in the moment. Even coming home and you see your wife is in a foul mood.
Sure.
Don't make it about yourself. Be in the moment with her and just sit there, or your husband or your child or whatever. Just like in the moment.
Elaborate on that. I'd like to know that's a good example. You come home you see your wife or your child.
They're
husband,
in a lousy
whatever.
moment.
Yeah, and so what do you do? What do you mean by stay in the moment?
People tend to, let's say I'm telling you about one of my problems.
Sure.
And I'm so down. And all I need from you is just stay in the moment with me. But somehow you just tend to make it about yourself.
Okay, let's do a scenario here. Okay, let's say okay. So I come home.
Yeah.
Let's say we're roommates or whatever. Okay, I come home and you seem upset, and so I come home and I'm like, oh hey, how you doing?
I'm really upset, dude. Like, it's been a bad day. And you go, well, it's been a really shitty day for me. You know what happened for me? La 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 la.
Right.
And you're like, okay, whatever. And you go into yourself, and that person is into themselves. And we're not just sitting with each other and like giving each other the space to just sit there and be like, you had a bad day? But dude, let me just sit there with you and let you clear that energy.
So you're saying it's about listening, it's about letting people articulate how they feel.
What's the word I'm looking for? Mindful listening. Mindful listening, attentive, mindful.
Sure.
In the,
right.
Like
in the now.
In the now, just offering that to one another. Because when I was in Bangladesh and I see a rickshawala getting off his rickshaw, running up to his little hut out of cardboard boxes, he's making direct contact with his family members, and they're hugging and they're looking at each other,
right,
and they're sharing the little piece of food that he found, and they're all together,
right.
And he's saying, I drove this fat guy today on my rickshaw, dude, and I'm like 90 pounds. He was like 300,
Jeez.
And the whole family's in tuned, and everybody's together, and they're just, It's a difference. It makes a difference.
Did you see a lot of that?
I did see a lot of that. A lot of the things that freaked me out in Bangladesh was seeing street children.
Wow.
With the blown up bellies.
Sure.
And I didn't know how to emotionally deal with that. And it messed with my head, and it affected the relationships around me. Because all I wanted to do was just get away, because that's fight or flight. Right. I'm scared. This scares me. This reality is so scary.
It's somewhat extreme, right?
It's so extreme. But I see it, and all I want to do is get away, and I'm crying, and I can't be there. And I'm thinking, like, how do I get away?
Right.
But over time, I saw how people become desensitized to these images of the people in the street and how they can live with it.
Right.
And that also broke me as well.
For generations, of course. But it's common in all sorts, in various countries around the world.
And then the more I learned, you have to have that to know just how lucky you are when you are blessed. Not lucky, but blessed. When you have that blessing, that you have something, that's what pushes you to be compassionate and give. Because to give, is to actually receive
Right.
blessings in abundance.
Sure.
You know?
This is why a lot of people find a lot of happiness in giving, right?
Yeah, and
Especially,
a lot of religions in the world, most of the religions in the world focus on giving.
right.
The more you give, the more you're going to get in return.
Now,
Spiritually, in every way. Like,
how has this spiritual can I call it a transition? Or what would
it is
you
it's
transformation?
It's mostly an awakening because we
Awakening.
are born spiritual.
Right.
And then we are, by our society, by our parents, we're conditioned.
Right. Culturally institutionalized.
Yes.
Yeah.
We give our children to the schools.
Right.
We go to the corporate jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
We're told what to believe, how to act at home,
Mm-hmm.
and we suppress our intuitive spirituality. And it's normal.
Wow.
It's just the age we live in. And it wasn't always like this.
You know what's funny? I think I'm kind of generalizing here, but a lot of what you're saying, I think a lot of people they go through that awakening maybe much later in their life. You know, like maybe in their, when they're late in their 60s.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
death comes near her, you become more like, hello.
Right. You become more open.
Hello, world. What have I been missing this whole time?
You become more open to
tune.
In tune, yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how you were always growing up. You had that, I saw like strong intuition.
I was, how we were talking about being a vegetarian
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that? When I was a small child, I never ate meat.
Okay.
It broke me to eat an animal because I remember I was small. I was about 4. I remember my earliest memories. I was 4, turning 5.
Okay.
And I was always a picky eater.
Right.
And I remember them trying to feed me meat. And I was like, the smell is making me gag. What
Wow.
is this?
Right.
And they're like, well, this is the cow. I'm like, that cow outside? That alive being, you killed it? And I just remember crying and crying. I had to be consoled for a week.
Really? Wow.
I couldn't understand why people will kill the cow
It's
and eat the chicken.
a lot of kids go through that, eh? Like
And I
it's
was messed up. I was like, no, don't kill it.
yeah.
And I would only eat, but I was okay with, I knew I could eat the egg. The egg felt all right. Like it didn't feel like I was killing.
But wait a minute, you like cheese, isn't that?
And I like
also...
cheese, but that's the cow giving me something,
Right.
and I give in return
And it's-
a
it-
house for you, cow. You can live in my farm.
and it's
you
not
give me your cheese, you pay rent.
and it's not dying. It's not
dying.
Right.
We're exchanging, like
Right.
we're you
Yeah.
give me your cheese, I'll give you my barn. I saw it like that, like as a little kid.
Yeah.
And all I would eat was like cheese, bread,
Mm-hmm.
marmalade, yum. And I was severely malnourished as a child
Really?
because I wouldn't eat a lot of the stuff that they would try to give me. And
Because you went on strike for
I
a
went
week.
on strike. I was not going to eat that dead animal. Like, you are all killers. So
Wow.
I ate meat for the first time when I was 17 years old.
Are you fucking sick?
Yeah.
You mean
And I went to McDonald's.
Hold up. So you mean to tell me like you seriously banned meat from that
And I didn't
moment?
know why I just felt wrong. It just
Wow.
felt wrong on every level, and it would make me severely emotional. Like, even
Interesting.
seeing it being cooked, the smell of it,
Yeah.
I'm sobbing. Like, I can't
Wow.
take it.
And the first time you had,
I went to McDonald's.
and that's not even like
It's like, no.
I don't even know if
where's
that's
my-
real meat. No offense, Ronald
know.
McDonald, but like I don't know if that's real meat.
I went to McDonald's. I walked in.
Yeah.
And I took a Big Mac. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat meat.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it. Everybody loves McDonald's. And I remember eating it. And it was the Big Mac sauce.
Ah,
It was so good.
That's what did it.
It did it. It made that meat. But it didn't feel like meat. It felt like cardboard mostly.
Well, yeah, you know, I think that's a perfect.
Yeah.
I agree. It's
But
not
their
meat.
sauce,
It's
that sauce,
the bread, the sodium, all that. They make it really, really tasty.
it does. It's delicious.
What for you, like what? How do you ever feel like you have to explain? It sounds to me like you've had an interesting. I'm sure others have said that, and you've opened up to a certain extent here. But I know you from way back, and you've had an interesting life. I think I always found you to be back in the day. You were very vocal and very interesting defiant character, and I say that with, in a positive.
Rebel.
Yeah, like
rebel till you die.
That's it. But do you ever find like you have to explain yourself to people?
I used to feel that I had to explain myself to people until I realized that it does nothing. Now I just vibe it out with people.
You vibe it out.
I vibe it out. If I need to take the time to explain it to you, we're not on the right frequency.
Right.
Like, and sometimes I feel like this person actually needs some explaining. And I'll take the time when I feel that frequency of like, yeah, I'm willing to take the time to explain myself to you.
Right.
Because I can feel your vibe. It's coming from the place of heart. And sometimes I just look at a person and I know that no matter what I say or what I try to, they're always going to look at it like
what? Like
meh. Like, I don't got to listen to it. That's BS.
Right. And who are, I guess the question is that family? Is that friends? Is that acquaintances? Who is that demographic?
It used to be, it doesn't matter if it's like, it could be family, it could be acquaintances, it could be family that turns friendly then afterwards and realizes because everybody's going through their thing.
Right.
Like, like my mom right now doesn't understand my brother's spiritual awakening. She thinks he's going crazy. She's in fear. She's coming and seeing us and going, somebody help me, please save my child. Like, something, he's losing his mind. She genuinely thinks he's losing his mind.
Is he losing his mind?
No, he's just waking up.
Okay.
You guys need to meet. Little flirt.
Is that his stage name?
That's his stage name, yeah.
Little flirt.
Little flirt. It's
Okay.
what was it? Rapper and woman's enthusiast.
Damn.
He's an amazing
That's
kid.
awesome.
Yeah.
But no, in regards to like having to explain, like, so now you're transitioning into potentially, well, no, not potentially. You're transitioning into yoga. You're and therapy to a certain extent. Wouldn't you say it's?
That's a really great thing that you brought up with the therapy.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have more meetings to discuss this.
Yeah, like I mean,
I think we should go into business.
Hey, I'm down, man. I'm down. I'm open to ideas. But no, like I mean, like in terms of using yoga, obviously to release tension in the body, to clear the mind and the soul. But like there's so many other correlations and stream, like relationship counseling, counseling people. You have a background.
I do have a background in counseling.
Right.
And one thing that I learned while I was counseling in Toronto was that back then I didn't know how to separate myself emotionally from people's problems. And now I
don't know how people do that, by the way.
But I don't
know. What I mean?
Like,
because
when you hear your heartfelt pain, I'm messed up over it, man.
Yeah, man. It's like, some stuff is heavy. You're just like, oh.
Like, dude, man. Like, I feel and I go home and I cry for you and I'm praying for you and I'm like,
wow.
Please God help this person. Like,
right. Have you learned that? Have you learned that, Emina?
I still don't know how to, but I know how to bring myself in the present moment and just sit with the energy. Your pain, I can sit with you in your pain now. Now, I've learned that. Before, I would try to escape it.
Okay.
It's too much to handle. After work, go and get a few drinks. Like, just try to escape this shit. It's crazy. Like,
right.
But now I've learned how to at least sit with that and let it be what it is and let it be what it needs to be. Yeah.
It's almost like letting go, but being there.
Yeah,
right?
Let it go. Exactly. And that is the thing that's going to heal humanity. Let it go, but be there.
Right.
Right?
We should put that on a T-shirt and sell it.
We should.
What is so what is the grand plan after you go through this this extensive training and heighten your consciousness, so on and so forth?
Give back.
How so?
Give back to the world. Like, I want to give back this. There's so many people out there thinking that they can't get through what they're going through. And, they've had loss, death, divorce, death of a child, losing your house. Right. Like, everything.
Yeah.
Life is like this. But you can't get through it without completely losing your sanity. You can come through it and you can become better for it. To lose is actually a gift. Loss is a gift. It's a great gift. When you are given the gift of having to lose something, it helps to build you back up to the best that you can be.
But it's scary.
It is so
It's
scary.
it's frightening,
because
isn't it?
fear,
Yeah.
ego plays on fear. It takes that fear and makes you think that you are done.
Right.
There is nothing to look forward to.
Right.
But actually, it is the grandest thing that is happening to you, and you can actually remake yourself into anything that you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to give that back to people. I want to show people that they can raise their life energy. They can come through anything that they're going through and come out even better and grateful and experience infinite love and kindness and all that compassionate.
You're such a positive person.
I try to be.
What happens to a body, to an individual, a group of people, when their frequency is so low? What happens to them psychologically, physiologically, physically? You name it.
When our frequencies get super low, well, first our thinking becomes super negative. And the more you think negatively, the more it feeds into that lower frequency. Then all of a sudden, you're starting to project your negativity onto others. And you're starting to point fingers and blame them for what you're going through. And it becomes a cycle of destruction.
Right.
And then negative entities start to latch onto you that feed off the negative energy. Mm-hmm. And you just get lower and lower. And some people commit suicide. People think that the only way out of this is to kill themselves.
Right.
And, you know, it is a reality. Like these negative feelings, these negative things can latch onto a person so bad where they hit rock bottom and they think the only way out is just, you know,
suicide.
out.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there's a lot of trauma in the world. There's a lot of people going through varieties of struggles that people might not know about. Obviously.
Do you feel? Sorry to cut you.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
do you feel that we're purposely being fed that there's a lot more negative in the world than there is positive?
That is an excellent question. You know what? I'm happy you mentioned that because you're right. I guess this idea of negativity is always being augmented.
Now it goes back to your previous question. Mm-hmm. When people get in that cycle of lower frequencies and keeping the thinking negative, I feel like a lot of the stuff that's out there in society is purposely trying to keep people at a lower frequency. Because I feel once collectively our frequencies rise, that we're going to break out of the Maya, the illusion of what we're being fed.
Sure.
You feel like, I don't know, I feel.
No,
I'm feeling that.
I know what you mean. And you meet a lot of people who are in their own kind of self-perpetuating cycle.
Hell. They're in their
hell.
hell.
Like, yeah.
They're hellers.
And they can...
A good friend of mine said that people like that are called hellers.
Hellers.
Yeah. They just...
Wow.
Yeah.
And
they're hellers on earth.
They're energy vampires.
Energy vampires, hellers, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, it was very nice speaking with you.
It was a pleasure.
I hope I hope to speak to you again down the road when you're done your training, and hope to see and hear more about your journey.
Thank you, sir, and all the best. And
all the best to you.
Infinite love and gratitude.
Infinite love and gratitude.
Infinite love and gratitude.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.